when you design something, the first thing you came before you draw, or you came with shape, illustration, photography, concepts. The first thing you need to use is words. The words are in between what you have in your mind and the outcome of your act of design. So without the word, you are not able to make a shape on an idea. So the words are the first thing before any ideas, because you need the words to create the ideas. So when Solbas saying that, in fact, when we are type designer, we are in between. We are somewhere between the thinking and the visual, because to make the thing visual, you need the word to explain what it will be visually, the concept that you are thinking about. On thinking, it's abstraction. On typography, in certain ways, it is like that. Human begin to speak together many centuries ago. And then many centuries ago also, they begin to invent something incredible, much better than the last iPhone or Samsung to record voice. It's writing. With writing, it's the best way to record memories, to record through vision, the memory of humanity in general. So the word is the best tool to record anything and to record what the human have done on this planet. So that's the best thing to keep alive the memory of someone who died already a long time ago, and to be able to read it. If we look to some writing, we came through such writing as type designer point of view, going to certain bookshop and library in Paris, looking at all the writing about Romain Duroy process to design the typeface. It was fabulous to see that the people, when they wrote about what they're doing for a couple of months or even a couple of years to set up the design of Romain Duroy, and when we read such thing this day, it seems to be like Jonathan Hoffler wrote that on his company yesterday. They ask the same question, they think the same as today. They are not, old without any weight, not the same way. They seem to be exactly like us today. So it's fabulous, because when you have a piece of writing, you can feel that we are very similar. I'm pretty sure if we are able to go to the Roman and to have some writing about the Roman inscriptions, probably we have very similar way to think about what is a piece of design. And it was 2,000 years ago. I'm pretty sure about that. So we are not more intelligent or better to make the design happening. We are just the same. We are still human, like many centuries ago. So obviously, writing, I will say quickly. I'm not sure it makes something, but printing was invented as a reproduction or a tool to make writing done more easily on the first typeface, like Nicolas Janson, this one in very large size, who looks to be like the last Adobe typeface done by Robert Slimbach. It's just here, it's beautiful, it's very legible, and that's a landmark for a new job for a lot of people. Many of us doing that these days is to design typeface and to have a foundry and to distribute the typeface with different kind of style. We have a lot of them these days, but it started during this period. When you learn type design, you go to school now. There is a lot of school all over the world. And the first thing you learn or you dream of when you look at typeface design is the technical limitation of the screen, of the paper, of the newspaper paper, of the printing run, whatever, of the signage condition, on the metal printing. A lot of things we are just a technical constraint, and you think that because you will address that and you know this limitation, you are able to be a better designer. But if you think about that in a different way, and if you think that most of the type designers have been also at some point or still are director, graphic designer, when you do an identity for a company with a truck company, you will not design the logotype of the truck company because you have to be on the truck to be read when you are on the motorway and you drive fast. It's not a limitation. I mean, you design the logotype on the identity of this truck company for other reasons than because the truck going fast in certain size on the motorway. You see that in completely different way because you think about the history of the company, about the context, about marketing, about something you don't want to discuss with, you know, marketing and stuff like that, but still, you try to imagine a world on something with not just technical problems. So when you have to design a typeface, it's the same thing. You have the limitation for sure, but also you have the cultural aspect, the connotation, the context, the city, the people, on your vision about that. The people who have done the Roman capitals is not the limitation on the stone or the tools to make them like we know them, like Trajan, published by Adobe, who make it beautiful. It's just because it's their taste, is what they want to design. It's not because of certain limitation who make them doing the Roman capitals. It's just their design decision at some point because of the style, because of the trend, because it's what they think it's the best for the Roman Empire or something like that. So when Ladislas Mandel is very famous to have designing a lot of typeface, depending the city, depending the country, for telephone books. You know, such thing that we use in good old times. We have a book quite heavy, and we look to telephone number to find the doctor very quickly. On these things, he started to do such things. This is for US, that's his last project. He started with Italy, and after France, after UK, after Belgium, after Spain, after Portugal, in whatever order, I don't recall. But each time, the guy has pretty good skill to be able to design a typeface to be at this size, so it's very, very, very small. Half of the size of the Bell Centennial by Matthew Carter, but the project is not the same. Matthew Carter, Bell Centennial is a revival of an existing typeface. This is a new design. But, so, in each case, when discussing with Ladislas, was always, okay, I'm designing a typeface for Spain, and the shape for Spain will be different than the shape for UK, for Belgium, or even for US. So he addressed the same technical limitation or problem of printing, but he changed the shape depending the context. And I recall to have him saying to me that when I'm going to do the typeface for a certain country, I'm going to the country several weeks to fill the place, but more, you know, more in a more, if we have to look at that in different ways, that's probably a poetic way to say that he's doing his job, but obviously the name, the family name of people are not the same depending on the country. And also you have to think that this kind of publication is done for people who doesn't read so much any books, because suddenly they have to get the doctor for their daughter, and that's probably the first time since a month they will really read something in the 70s, 60s, or even before. Today everybody read all the time their phone on the subway or whatever. So you have to be very clear, very well organized, and also very adapt to the cultural, to the local things of the country and things like that. So when I designed Paris in '96, my idea was obviously to try to address some legibility problem, to be better than Adrien Frutiger, who is the king of CDH typeface with Frutiger. Started to be designed for Roissy Airport in '73. So I wanted to be better than him, to try to find new solution. I'm not sure if I'm better or not, but you know, when you start a new typeface, you still have a starting point on to try to improve things, so to make it more legible or to find some solution. But the typeface I've got at the time was Helvetica, the same more or less that you have in New York. I leave to Paul Shaw the detail of which version of such thing like that. For me, just Helvetica, whatever. And then that's my first presentation. It's the scan of the printout A4 format from this moment. And this is a final typeface. The first thing was done, I don't recall the software, and this is the fonts that we sell on the website today. You can see that there is not so much difference between the two. But the idea really wasn't to copy Frutiger at all. It was more to make Helvetica more legible like Frutiger, or also to be more close to Johnson typeface, with, for me, or Gill, something quite interesting, because I like very much Gill's way of thinking about legibility, because rather than to make something very corporate, very well organized, he gives some soul on his shape to make it more legible. So people think that, for example, Gil Caillot or certain weight look like circus typeface. But for me, he's more someone who addresses legibility problem with this kind of shape. So rather than to make the thing very modular, very well organized, the same, with the same design on every weight, he changed the design depending on what he wants to achieve. He has no limitation on how he designs. So to make this change helps the legibility of the typeface and makes the typeface nicer for humans. And that's a little bit what I wanted to do with Helvetica, doing Parisine at the time when I designed in '96. For me, it was very boring typeface with no style. I said, what is this typeface? I was young and I feel that there's nothing happening. It's transparent or whatever. But it's not, you have certain feelings on it. But when you are in the act of design, you never know exactly what's happening. But the typeface was for the Signage system, and then it was on something like the metro system in Paris doing a new identity, and they have a planification of the new identity, and they need the typeface, and they need the logo type, and the color scheme, and things like that. It was more like the people in charge of the Signage need to have a special typeface for the Signage, that's it. It started like that. And then, after the people from the bus system wanted to have this typeface too. And they wanted also to have the typeface on the map. And then, the people in large advertising company wanted to do an advertising with a map of the metro as the symbolic of the reference of the metro into the advertisement. So suddenly the typeface was used in advertisement also. So after a few years, 10 years or more, the typeface becomes the corporate typeface of the metro, bus, and all the transportation system in Paris. But the way it propagates into the system, it was more like a revolution or a democratic way to go. It was not from the top to the bottom, but from the user in the system to everybody, and people begin to realize that typeface belongs to them. It's part of their identity, and they recognize that as part of Paris too. A few years ago, like everywhere in the world, LEDs appear on every bus, on a lot of other things, and it was very, very practical because you can change the direction of a bus. But the problem is these people who built that with probably a very great tool doesn't know what is a piece of design. They don't know what is legibility. They don't know what is a user. They just have big letter on the box with some light. So in Paris, this is a typical example. You have 5 train stations. And to say train station, we say gare. So Gare Montparnasse, Gare Saint-Lazare, Gare de Lyon. And also there is some regulation from the state saying you have to be in certain size. You know the story about make the logo bigger, means little bit the same. Make the typeface very big, because so like that the people we have some visual difficulties to read, they will be able to read. But the problem is one is very big, no spacing, and all caps is so big that you are not able to display the text. So the bus moves, the text on the bus moves, and you never know where it goes. When you take the bus every day, you know that that's the one. But when you are a tourist, when you just come in, you don't know, so you are lost. So okay, you give the information, but you don't. Nobody is able to read that. You lost part of the information you think you give to people. So the idea was to design a typeface for that, caps lowercase, and I wanted to play with the counters. So you can see, if I move to second, you can see that the B, the counter is not the same as the D or the C. And also the 5 is not built the same as the 6. The numerals were higher than the caps for different reasons, because the numerals are the name of the buses. So all these things to help legibility. Obviously, this is not the typeface by itself. It's a way we use to present the typeface to the transportation system in Paris. We call it RATP. So the first thing was to design this thing for presentation. And then we deliver this bitmap font. And then they begin to use it on LED system, on this kind of screen, the LED system. So it was very difficult to realize what the effect of what are you designing, because when the typeface even it moves, it changes the weight. Because when it moves, you can have three dots. 3 LEDs, but the visual perception can be 4 or 5. So we think by advance that, okay, this way it would be nice, but when it moves, it changes completely the weight. Also, depending if you have, it's like today, sunny day, and you have the bus and you have the sun on the back, you are not able to see what's happening. Even there is some dust, there is some system to look at the light and change the light of the LED, but it changes all the time. So during more than 1 year, we have to go all the time to the, it's not the factory, but the garage for the buses, and to test the typeface rather than just to test on the computer. It's easy for us, type designer this day, because we are just using the computer, see the typeface in real condition, on sell the typeface. It's easy, but here it was a very long process. At the end, you even asked to have some user testing. I hate user testing because user doesn't know what they're reading. It's a little joke for sure, but so we set up some questions. So just imagine in Châtelet station, the one in the middle of Paris. Here we have 450 stations in Paris just for the metro. But for buses, there is thousands of stations. So just imagine that these 15 or 20 or 50%, when in the Châtelet metro you have 6 million passengers by day, these 30% can decide for so many millions of people, they don't know what to say. When you ask someone where to put the headlines on the piece of text, it says centered on the middle. He doesn't have any opinion about design. He just put it centered because he learned at school that the title have to be on the middle, in all caps or something like that. So these people, we ask some question: do you prefer the previous version or the new version? And say the new version. And then, do you want that the typeface will be aligned to the left, to be close to the name or to the numerals of the line, or centered? Obviously, they selected centered because they have been told at school that a title is centered. But it's stupid. It's just stupid. But people, when they don't know, it's not possible to ask any question to them. So the typeface expanded more. We added certain wings. And then I wanted to use to do something fun. These are the beautiful posters done by Jean Villemer. We have done a lot of identity in Paris in the 70s, 80s, 90s, Musée d'Orsay and things like that. And so we have done a beautiful poster for the Pompidou Center, even before the Pompidou. Everything was in Helvetica, but now you have Parisian in Paris, so you don't need anymore Helvetica to set up French design. I will show you now a more old and recent project because AW Conqueror was launched already a couple of years ago. But since now, probably 3 years, something like that, we work on expansion of the typeface. The typeface was almost ready last summer. But I was in vacation, and I sent an email to my colleagues at the foundry, and they said, yes, it's very good to have all the swash on the caps, but maybe we need also to add some swash on the lowercase too. It can be much more funny to use that, and it was also even a better homage to Herb Lubalin that I love, and people like that in the 70s. So we begin to add a lot of swash also on the lowercase. I have in mind a Bookman or typefabric with swash from the 70s. And so we begin to have optical variation, and also the swash, on a lot of different kind of shape. And even there is even more version of G on the families on V3. So the first element is that the family, more or less. Different weight, different optical size. When you add some alternate swash contextual, you begin to have very playful things. It's going crazy. And then when we begin to set text, you have something who looks nice, it's easy to set. And then we add just the swash thing. It's not, the typeface is not finished, so there is some problem there and there, and I will show you. You will see that quite easily. So, for example, here, we're still going into all these things to make it perfect. So, yeah, here. So such combination, in some way it works, some other it doesn't work. So we need to find solution. And it's not easy, but it's very fun to do, because it takes so long time to find the right solution. Even we do OpenType class, it's years, but it's never perfect still, so we have to continue to work on it. We have some other things that we will put on the typeface, some blocks, something like that. You just put an OpenType feature and you have a block. So it's designer delight, but it's a nightmare for us, but we love it, for sure. And come back to Parisine. Last year, regularly, when we do typeface, we ask graphic designer to do the specimen even later, even much later when the typeface was published. So last year, they did in New York 2 specimens for Typofoundry. So probably we are the only person in France asking Pentagram to work for a French company. I don't know in fact, but it's a funny joke for us at least. And also Stéphane Elbaz, who is here tonight. We have done a beautiful Fournier. He take a picture of a guy somewhere in New York, probably Supreme. And he have done a very beautiful specimen. This is another specimen done by Mucho, Laurent Stopkov in particular for Le Monde Family. What I wanted to say is that is type specimen, printed specimen. You will have some on the back when you leave the room. It's a very good tool. Even we have everything on the website. You have, for example, this dedicated specimen website where a mini website would are launched with a typeface. But after a year, to find out this website for this foundry, it's impossible. After 2 weeks or even after 2 days, this day, you don't know where it is. But the specimen you have on your library somewhere, it's easy to find if you organize well your books on specimens, so it's very nice. Foundry, once they design a typeface, they never design a typeface for a specific user. Okay, the marketing saying that this typeface is for editorial work or for signage or whatever. It's just marketing. You can use a typeface for anything, it's not dedicated to something in particular. But a typeface can change the identity of the company, like it was the case for Futura, for Volkswagen for years. And we know that in branding, and even the German knows that even more than anyone, the shape of the typeface can change a brand, or the selection of typeface can also make an impact on the words that you use. That's from very old publication, Font and Function from Adobe, from early 90s, when they doesn't have a website at the time, so they have the list of the typeface they sell on. They just show that changing the typeface on the business card, it makes completely different atmosphere. But when you have a custom typeface, it's completely another story. Because a custom typeface, for me, everyone always refers as the first custom typeface, like Johnston typeface for the underground in London 1 century ago. But for me, the first typeface, probably other, I don't know, I don't have the truth about that, but I'm French, so I'm happy to say that Romain Duroy is the first typeface, it's the first custom typeface ever, because it's the typeface of the king. The king wanted to have a typeface. I'm not sure he wanted to have a typeface, but a lot of people, counselors say to the king, you need to have a typeface, you know, like you need the corporate identity or whatever. Louis XIV was very good. He had architecture with his branding, he had his horses, he had his textile murals, everything with a color palette, with monograms, with typeface. He was really good at commercial architecture. All this stuff was completely branded. It was a king. So on very well respected, the brand was very well known everywhere in the world. Even the Russians have copied the Versailles palace to do the same in Russia. So you can see that when another brand copies it, it means that the brand is good. So with the typeface, he made the thing. It's a joke because I have a Maxime here and probably say something about what I said. I don't know, but yeah, it's funny. Right. We don't have to be serious all the time. So, so the shape of the typeface are interesting and important when you create a piece of design. So in the 70s, when Roger Talon when he worked on the new fast metro called RER at the time, they wanted to have a specific typeface to show them the future, to show to the people that this metro will be different from any other. It will be never late. The French people in the room will probably laugh about that because that's the most late of everything in Paris. That's the fast metro from the 70s. RER. Always problem with that. But at the time it was the subway, the metro of the future. So they wanted to have a typeface designed by Albert Loton with a rounded corner, which was not so common at the time. Not so much typeface like that. There is no tool in RoboFont to be able to do the round version in 2 minutes with a Python script. But when you can see this typeface and when you compare with the style of Roger Talon, a very nice, very good designer in France at the time, you can see that you can fit the same shape on the typeface as this piece of design. Rounded corners and things like that you can see also in sci-fi movie at the time. Yeah. So with the typeface, part of the branding, part of the system, you try to have also not only on the piece of architecture and everything, you have also on the shape of the typeface. You try to put what makes the brand in a certain way. When people doing sci-fi movies, they always try to invent a world that we never know. We don't know yet, because that's why we go to the cinema, to the theater to see the movie. But in fact, when you look to the movie much later, it's just the expression of the time. So it looked like very dated after a couple of years. It looked like, yes, that's the movie, sci-fi movie for 70s, very cool, and it looks 70s, and it's not the future anymore. It's just ourselves that we try to represent. So architects also do such thing like that, because architecture, that's a demonstration of our civilization. There is a lot of books about architecture that anyone can read, the normal people in the street. But do you have seen on the subway, you are not able to see the books that the people read because they have their iPhone or whatever, Samsung, but normally when the people they can have a book about architecture. No one has beside you, on two other, a book about type design or typography. Nobody cares about that. Sometimes there is an article in a newspaper, but it's quite rare. Architecture, everyone look at that as something very crucial for human. So even, you know, there is some Villa Savoy for the kids. It's probably the father and mother building that for Christmas, not their baby or whatever it's for, just 12. But this is this kind of piece of design dating back from almost 1 century. And it seems very contemporary today, and it seems to be from just yesterday, or was built just yesterday. On typeface is like that, not cars, never. A good piece of design like this building, or Futura, or many others, you want to live on this building. You want to use this typeface. IKEA doesn't want, but you like Futura. Like I like Futura, it's a good typeface. And it's a typeface we express the future or express today without no question. But it's dating back from 1 century ago, like this piece of building, but not the car. We want to take that. Oh, look at this fancy car on the street on Sunday because there is an exhibit about all cars, but no one wants a car. So my recommendation is stop to install typeface, install a car, and buy typeface. It's a better investment for the future, your future. When the French version of Futura was launched, Europe, they wanted to show that the typeface from the future, so they put some fashion, they put some car, very modernist car at the time. The car from today, wow, that's the last piece of design, it's fabulous. But now, this is still contemporary, not the car at all. And there is some failure when you design exactly for the same reason. Frutiger, I like so much Adrien Frutiger. He's probably my biggest influence in my career. But when I can see that my vision of what he did probably was a good idea, but it's still to work after a couple of years, like the people who do sci-fi movie, because they say, my Frutiger is beautiful, my Frutiger is a typeface for the future, for the time. It looks like the last piece of design, the VX from Citroën. When you look to the car, it's very 80s looking. And he said, Helvetica is horrible like the car from the 50s. But he came to the same problem, he made the same mistake, saying that Helvetica or Futura are very old because of the car. But they are not. Everyone equally prefers this typeface to this car, and still using this typeface, and have an opinion about, I prefer Helvetica, or me, I prefer Fuji, or whatever. But they use the typeface every day, and there is no problem with that. Comparison with architecture and typeface is something quite common. Aldo Novares, in one of his books, compared everything, but there is a lot of books with this kind of comparison. The shape of the typeface and the shape of the building, saying that their style, the style of architecture have influence on the style of the type is not completely true, but at least we can try to see something. So architecture, like type design, is like this quote from Yves Saint Laurent. It's a style, it makes our civilization, it makes us still the same humans than 2,000 years ago when they have done the Roman capitals in Roma or place like that. On a piece of design, even it came from the 60s, it can still be something from today, even it's already very old piece of design. On typeface like Brasilia, I don't like so much Helvetica, you probably already know about that, but I'm a little more subtle because I love Brasilia. I don't know why. And sometimes I improve the presentation, I realize in fact that if I love Brasilia, it's because I work at, my first job was on this shop, who use Brasilia. It's not because Brasilia is better than Helvetica, I don't know in fact. But that's part of my story, so I like very much Brasilia, and for me it seems to be contemporary, but it's probably very 50s and very 60s style. The biggest difference between architecture and type design is we have words. What a change to have the word that architect doesn't have, because the word change a typeface completely. It's not the reverse. Normally, it's always, we say, okay, with this typeface, we word have a different, but I think it's completely the reverse. I will give you one example. When we look to, I have a lot of cases like that, when you look to old specimen, so you have specimen from Germany, from Spain, from France, from US, and people have comments about the specimen and say, oh, it's beautiful, and it's very German, or it's very Spanish, or it's very French. The typeface. But it's not the typeface who looks French, Spanish, or German, or whatever. That the word is set, the specimen is set on. So it looks French or Spanish because it's just French or Spanish word, nothing else. The typeface can be the same in Spain or Germany or whatever. It's the word who changes the meaning of the typeface, it's not the typeface who changes the meaning of the word. The word, because the typeface are very abstract and it's very difficult to see what's happening. But typography, as Albert Wallenstein worked with Albert Breton in the early 60s on Brasilia, he put the thing very, very well. He's a Swiss who came in France, and it's exactly what's happening. It's the visualization of the world. Stefan did a very nice typeface for Sephora, but Sephora in US is not the same as Sephora in the rest of the world. So we have a guy here, an Italian guy, who have done also several typeface, but for US. This is the one from the rest of the world. And this typeface is exactly this expression of saying that the typeface says the brand because the brand uses this kind of patterns, and it changes all the time. It was with a lot of Python on open type features done by also someone in the room, so Stefan and Mathieu are here today. So you have done a very good job on that project. And this is exactly what I'm saying before. When you design a typeface, you know, as I refer to architecture, I refer to the culture of humans on this earth and things like that. It's not exactly the word I want to use in English, but that's the word I know. A little more subtle than that. But when you go to archive of some company, you can pick up the right terms, and from that you are able to build a story about the typeface. Not just drawing the typeface, but try to telling a story with a collection of typeface like we did for Vuitton. The same for such thing. These shapes are completely contemporary shape, but they look like the shape painted on the trunk 1 century ago on Vuitton, on large Vuitton trunk who crossed the Atlantic from Paris to New York on rivers. So when we look to the history of a brand or a company, we can find a piece of shape who make the thing much more like, we respect the history of the company, and we can make new things who work very well, because this was done, you know, it's the last technology to print that, inkjet printing, it's open type features, it's done, you can order online, the people set for you immediately with the computer the thing, so that's the last technology, but the shape can be something from the past and it works very well today. Always, when you design a typeface, it's always to think about to think about the concept and try to build a story about what's happening. So obviously, and that's a perfect example of what is a graphic designer today. Not this guy, but this one. We still are like that. It's Cassandre, and this, you know this person, Yves Saint Laurent. When you look to the brand Yves Saint Laurent, I mean, you look like everybody look on the street of Yves Saint Laurent brand, they think about this guy. Immediately, they say, yeah, that's a fashion designer. The brand is him. But the brand of the logotype is Cassandre style, is not Yves Saint Laurent style. Because Yves Saint Laurent style is perfect to do fashion, and I love Yves Saint Laurent. There is no question about that. His typeface, piece of lettering are more like geometrical, very simple, but it's not like the logotype. But the logotype made by Cassandre, that's the style of Cassandre, nothing else. It's not just a logotype done in the style of Yves Saint Laurent, it's just the style of Cassandre. So everybody thinks that Yves Saint Laurent he doesn't have created the logotype, but he seems to be the same person, but in fact the graphic designer, nobody cares. Nobody knows who designing the typeface or the logotype, who make Yves Saint Laurent story fabulous, and everyone recognizes a lot of things done by this company since many years. So the idea with this typeface done for Yves Saint Laurent Beauty was to mix the two things, so to keep the idea of Cassandre, such detail like that, very angular, and also to have some simplicity that you can feel on fashion, because they use a lot of Futura magazine and things like that. After a couple of years, the electricity was stopped, so we began to rework on the typeface. So it was a rebound. On the new version of it, it's much better than the one that Yves Saint Laurent used, from my opinion. It was another couple of years to work on it. So we launched this typeface a couple of months ago, and obviously I use, the Frenchness of the typeface with all this name of designer, fashion designer using the typeface. But we added a lot of small things on the typeface. The first thing, for example, was the use of what I can call the thin punctuation, like people like Hohenstein did in the 60s for Brasilia. So we have an open type feature that you can use, or suddenly you have the thin punctuation for editorial work is very cool. Yeah, so such use. So that's the punctuation on the black or extra bold. And when you activate the open type feature, you have such very thin punctuation. And we added on top of that another typeface called Yves Mondrian. That's the name we give because Mondrian, you have the dress from Yves Saint Laurent. The name also is little influenced by Yves Saint Laurent. So when I say Yves, I say in French way, but I think in English it's little different. It's probably Yves, yeah, something like that. Why not? Saying, why not? That's the answer of Susanna Nichko. If she said to me when I was in San Francisco, you have a very good story with Yves or Yves, and say, why not? That's the best way to explain the name. Thank you, Susanna. When you design a new typeface, I'm always looking to the history of the brand, even it doesn't exist really much. It was the case with Nespresso. Nespresso is a big success in South Country in Europe, a little less in US. It doesn't consume coffee the same way anyway. I don't drink coffee. I never use the product of the company I work for. I don't have any Vuitton bag. I don't have any. I never tried coffee. So, but when you design a new typeface, it's like when you design a new piece of design. You have to say to the clients, it's like we built an area where we can play, we can discuss, but you are not able to go outside of this area that you define. You are the boss. It's like the user when you ask the user what they prefer. You say no, they don't have to decide. You decide where the game will be. Because it's very important to do that in type design, because in type design people doesn't know that this shape, because of the historical reference, will fit with other part of the typeface. But the clients know his competitor, so he wants to have the same finish on the art like something, or like something else. And when you put all the things from the clients, which is on the logotype, on the typeface, it's a big mess. Because he never know anything about that. He don't know. But so you have to say, okay, that's the style. On even there is something who is not Italian at all on this page, or whatever. It says that that's the style of your typeface. It's a Swiss company anyway. I wanted to do a typeface who looks Italian. I'm not sure it's really Italian. Okay, my grandmother is Italian, but it's not a good reason to make the typeface more Italian. But at least the typeface fits the fact that Nespresso used a lot of Italian words for the coffee, but not the rest of the company. So like that, you have this feeling of the 40s, of certain sign you can see still in Italy today. That's the same story about Casson before. A few years ago, George Clooney, since years, is on the ads of Nespresso. That's the character of Nespresso in a certain way. And Jean Dujardin, who has the same accent in English as me, was an actor with certain success in US. And then he was the new character on the ads. And every French were so happy. Wow, Jean Dujardin will replace George Clooney. There is a lot of article about that. but it was the first use of the typeface. No article about that. No, people doesn't care. Jean Desjardins is gone already. Georges is still here. Jean doing something else, but the typeface is still here also. But nobody sees the typeface. Nobody sees what the graphic designer do every day on our world. That's the reality of what we're doing. Nobody cares in a certain way. So that's the typeface, that's the same process for the Galeries Lafayette in Paris, looking to the archive. They have very nice archive with some early works by Jean Widmer, like this logotype that you have here. Very nice, from the early 60s. Swiss have done a lot of good things in Paris for identity, for sure. So the first thing was to do this typeface. And then I said to them that in a department store, you sell so much different kind of things. You needed to have a serif also. So I began to design a sort of Didot, 19th century style typeface to fit with the sans serif. And they begin to ask a lot of different kind of widths. So I have done a fake use of that, because the department store is like a fashion magazine. You have all this mixed. But it can be about sport, it can be about women, it can be about men or babies or house things, a lot of different things. So at the end, the typeface was a big, big family. But the problem is, at some point an advertising agency and say, could you remove the serif of the serif typeface? And that's what we got at the end. So it's not enough. The contrast, I think it's really necessary, because Didot is really the fashion magazine. They miss probably a point. But still, the first thing that the owner of the shop, or the family, before he launched the brand, he put that on Instagram and he used the typeface as a major element to launch the brand. On the typeface is used everywhere, even if it's not exactly the logo type. Yes. So another project here, it's the Mencken. In 2005, 2004, 2005, I was designing, I was called by Lucie Lacava, with a Canadian speaking French designer of newspaper, absolutely great designer. And the Baltimore Sun, it was at the time that you have the worst president ever. His name was George W. Bush, and you have quite separation between Democrat state and the Republican state. So the Baltimore Sun people wanted to have a typeface which is not the freedom fries things, but still all Europe, we can still speak to these people, even they against Iraq war. So they wanted to have a European typeface. So they called me to have this typeface design. And so I've designed a sort of Didot on certain optical size for the different use on the newspaper. They doesn't use the typeface anymore. Anyway, there will be no newspaper printed anymore. So they use the typeface for a couple of years. And 5 years later, we begin to expand the family. So that's the basis of the family. In black, that's the master have designed, and very quickly with the help of Mathieu, Tom Grace on the beginning in 2005, and Mathieu Reguet after, we begin to expand everything. It was a crazy job because this typeface have round headings like here. And this was a nightmare to have got this idea, because interpolation and like that was very, very difficult to achieve. That's just the example of the thing. The typeface was, in the 90s, I was young, full of mistakes all the time. I'm still doing a lot of mistakes. And I wanted to, I recall to have to write an interview of Matthew Carter. It was in '96. In a French magazine. And it was just before the launch of his Verdun in Georgia. And I was already worked on very close to launch my Le Monde typeface family with different super family, serif, sans serif, on the same model, and something like that. I was so happy with that. On Matthew Carter, when I asked about that, he said, what a silly idea to have a typeface super family. The song is different from the serif. Everyone doing that these days now. But at the time when Matthew Carter said, yeah, I have no reason to have the serif completely the same as the sans serif or the reverse. It doesn't make sense. And he was completely right. Because when you put a text, and you put just a word in sans serif in the serif typeface, nobody sees the difference. It seems to be the same typeface. Nobody sees the serif or see that there is no serif. People see when there is a bold, when there is an italic, there is different size, different color, but never serif or sans serif. They doesn't care about that in a certain way. So when I've started to design typeface, I wanted to make the thing practical. So to have at least the vertical proportion similar to some existing typeface. So the vertical proportion for the line spacing, the size of the small caps, higher because it was newspaper certain news at the time. So like that they match, but the rest doesn't match at all. On 7 better. It was used on different publications. And we launched a typeface. When you launch a typeface, we wanted to launch a typeface in 2016, but we came with Matthew to something not very nice. So we stopped the launch and we started to work another year on it. On that, Matthew commented on the various tests of the multiple master thing. So every mistake we've done at this period, every bug we have the typeface, we made, it was something like 10 days to correct, because there is so many fonts, so many small details to make the thing happening. On that, the last testing sheet with some of the colleagues here. Each page is just one weight. That's really the last thing to be sure. That was one of the first use when the typeface was released by Chris Mial. And funny enough, when the typeface was ready in 2017, George W. was a great president compared to the one you have, guys. And what is crazy is, Mencken was the name of the typeface the Baltimore Sun selected because the Mencken typeface, Mencken is the name of one of the most important journalists, writer they've got during the 20s, 30s. And when I look to the internet, I can see these days that people use a quote from Mencken against Trump in a certain way. So to have the specimen with all the quotes from the period by Mencken is so contemporary, so up to date. I mean, it just say what's happening. But it was, again, 1 century ago. And Claudia de Almeida, a very nice creative director, acquired on other publication in New York before. She had a lovely specimen. That another member of the team would check everything before any release. That's the Molly the cat. And then you see I begin to speak about politics, and I'm into politics since a year because of Brexit, because of Trump. So I wanted to do something for my country. And so I'm quite involved in politics since a year now. But typeface also helped politics. So the first meet of politics was the use of Le Monde Livre Classique by François Hollande for his new website at the time. And then you've got very beautiful identity built for Hillary Clinton by OCD people, Jennifer Keenan, Bobby Martin, with this beautiful typeface done by Lucas Sharp. But much later, at the end of they came with a very good idea. It was when Hillary was appointed as a candidate for the Democrats, they wanted to have not the usual sans serif, but they wanted to have something who is more like the voice of the future presidents. So they wanted to have a serif typeface. Fournier was just launched. Fournier was designed by Stéphane Elbaz. And they just selected the typeface when they want to have the real word of Hillary. But this typeface, we have to know that it was designed just before the French Revolution for a very important publication about art, about technique, something like that, to learn to tell to people how to do a lot of things. So it was very democratic typeface in a certain way. So to use a typeface for a candidate like that was absolutely beautiful. Last year I was in New York at the same period mostly, and I've been on Wednesday, like today this morning, and I was at the Impress, and I've done this thing. 2 weeks after, these people who were the creative director and art director of En Marche, that the new movement party was completely new. They call me and they say, we want to do something like Hilary have done with designer, to have few designers doing piece of design to help Emmanuel Macron to make him happening. So I say, okay, I'm happy to do that because I'm involving on the movement and I'm happy to help you. So I've designed, at the end we wanted to do a lot of things, but it was just a sticker because in France a team is just 2-3 persons, one Hilary, it was 40 persons. But I was happy to do that, even going to meetings, and after they, just 2 months when I visited them, in February, I told them about the story of Hillary Clinton done by OCD, and I said to them at the time, the people from OCD, Jennifer, have done very, very nice choice to have suddenly a typeface serif, more serious, more official, more institutional, for the word of the future president, the one some of you expected. So, so suddenly a month after, they send me, we use a Telegram application, so they send me a message and say, we want a serif typeface. We are at the point of the campaign. We need to have the candidate like much more stronger, much more like a future president. So they use Gilt in the beginning as a main typeface for the campaign, and they switch to another typeface. So I've done some tests in 10 minutes. I open InDesign, I send a PDF, few typeface, and Mencken was just out, and they said, we want this typeface. So that's some of the image they produce after when they begin to use the typeface. Was the first president in France speaking English easily to anyone. And much later, they have done a speech even in English, and that was the night they have done that, Make Our Planet Great Again, set in Mencken, was the biggest tweet ever in France, so I was so happy. They have done even a website with a typeface, and on last summer, I came back to the same guy, but they were at Élysée now, and they were wearing not tie all the time, but much more proper way to be at Élysée. And they are the first creative director and art director of the Palais de l'Élysée ever. So these people are doing the design there. So we selected together 3 families of typeface. So at some point they say Mencken doesn't work anymore. It's not enough institutional, or it's too big, it has to be better. So I told them about, for me they wanted to use Garamond. I said, no, Garamond is a typeface for the king. And you're in democracy, so the message is not right. You have a revolutionary typeface. The message fits the word, fits the style of the typeface. I mean, also reverse, whatever. So we had also another sans serif on something more like the French tradition, because sometimes you need that. So they begin to use this Fournier typeface with Aiglon typeface together, sometimes Aiglon typeface, even to go to New York. Okay, and they keep going to use the typeface all the time. Even in September also they have the first publication set, not just on social network or on screen, but also, so they have done some mistake here, okay, it's happening. But they use the 3 typeface all together. I'm so proud about that, it's fabulous. And then when Macron was elected, I put this tweet and I say, I'm so happy, blah, blah, blah. And Jonathan sent me this email. this tweet and he said, yes, welcome to the club. But he said, in all caps, 2. I have only 1, and it was Mencken at the time. So the winner at this moment was Jonathan Hoffner. I've got only 1 typeface, I'm on the club, but he's got 2 typefaces. He doesn't have a president anymore anyway. In September, we have 3 typefaces, and it still doesn't have any president. So the conclusion of that thing is typography can change the world, cannot change the world, but it can be part of the transformation. It never success all the time because nobody cares about typography and type design. So that's the last thing it will be to show you a little bit of where we are on the new Aiglon typeface. So this typeface is the one we started to work again last summer because they began to use it. So there is different ways, and when you look at it, it's interesting because in lowercase, it looks like very much in between, Swiss, modernist, geometrical. You don't know exactly what it is. When you change the G or the width, it changes completely the feeling. But so it's very serious, very. But when you look, you begin to see in all caps, it change. The feeling change completely. It looks like to be more Art Deco, more something different. So the caps give a completely different feeling than the lowercase. It's very strange. So it's where we are currently. We want to publish the typeface soon. So you can see, when I say soon, I say not next week, I say in 1 year, 2 years, something like that. So that's some text in lowercase, and you can see in caps it changed completely. That's more or less the basic leaf sets, the basic, and you can see that depending on the use of the G, it changed the feeling of the typeface. Just 1 letter, it makes completely different feeling. Thank you very much. Any question? Happy to answer. That was so perfect. Yes.
So given what Matthew Carter said about combining a serif and a sans serif typeface, don't you think you could design something that worked for that occasion, that was different enough?
If you design a family who were thinking about that, I don't think it works. Yeah, Matthew was right, no problem. The difficulty is the typeface designer is mostly a craftsman who produces or to design a typeface, but graphic designers are more like art directors, so they know how to combine the typeface together, depending on the context. That's the only thing they do. I mean, it's a little bit another joke, but the graphic designer job is to select good photographer, to do good typeface, or just put them on the page, more or less. It's more than that for sure. But it's a job of them to mix a different typeface, because it's like an art director when you do, I will say, when you refurnish a very expensive hotel, and you have this fancy interior designer, and came with this very strange idea to mix different kind of style of furniture on the hotel. And when you arrive there to take coffee and say, wow, it's fabulous, he mixed something from some Louis XIV with the last 60s, modernist, American, whatever, all mixed together, and it worked very well, and you like the mix of the thing. When you go to IKEA and you have all the same white stuff everywhere in your home, because you don't have the sense that this person has. So the graphic designer and art director have better sense than us to mix and to surprise us as a type designer, to mix the typeface and try to do something with them in an expected way. So sometimes we have projects with different typeface to make, like for Vuitton. we've designed a collection of typefaces, like an art director have to art directed a certain kind of combination, but we have to leave that to designer. It's not our job. We have to stop there in most of the case. So I don't know if it's a correct answer to your question, but it's my answer.
Well, there's so many articles out about how to mix sans serif and serif typeface, and for designers they have a fairly good idea of what to mix, but for people that are non-designers, or say a more democratic process, and someone couldn't afford you to do one face. And I'm thinking of an example like Scala, which has a serif and sans serif that work well together.
Yeah, but when you put a serif Scala into the text on sans serif, you are not able to see the difference.
I can.
You can, but you are a graphic designer and you love typeface.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So you see the difference because you have certain knowledge of history on typeface that you like. Like me, I see the difference.
Yeah.
But the normal user, see perhaps a mistake at maximum, but generally doesn't see. But still, he has an opinion about typeface he uses in Word or things like that. For sure, he prefers certain typeface over the other one. In the 90s, he never liked Arial or things like that. It's why he used Comic Sans, because it was cool. Just because it was a different choice than the basic, very corporate, very industrial typeface they deliver to him as a default font. So the user knows something, he knows the bold, he knows the italic. I'm not sure about the combination, yeah, I'm not sure. And also, in every book about typography, you have these very cliché things, like you have a feminine typeface, more masculine typeface, more sport thing. Yeah, for sure, there is something like that, but it's much more complex. And when you mix the thing together, it changes completely. So, yeah, when a graphic designer mix something, yeah, in certain style, the cliché things stop to work completely. And even with the addition of color, of illustration pattern, it changes again completely. But you need to explain things. So, I don't know, it's still relevant in certain way in the beginning to say sans serif, that's contemporary, serif it's the whole thing. Scripts are very feminine, or whatever. Yeah. After people have joked about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. There is no ending discussion. We don't know exactly. Yeah. I don't know. More and more, I know less about that. Yeah. Tomorrow I will say something different, probably like you, if we discuss again tomorrow. Yes, I'm pretty sure. And it's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what are the certainties that the type designer has?
Excuse me?
What's certain for you?
I have a lot of months to finish a typeface in front of me.
That's certain.
That's certain. Try to be more, not to joke like we like, but we know by advance probably when we have certain experience that certain contrasts work in certain sides, or that the relationship between the serif or the ending of the E have to be in certain way to work. Yeah, something like that, probably. And we know well history of typeface, so we play with that. We never even have to look at type specimen. We know them very. We need to keep the specimen on the library. They are beautiful when a journalist came to take a picture of us. But we don't need type specimen anymore. We just know them more or less. Okay, perhaps we can learn more for sure. We never stop to learn. But when we start a new project, we know what we're doing because we know the different part of history, and the mix of reference makes the thing interesting. So that probably, yeah, but the graphic designer is the same. He knows his classics. So he doesn't need to look at this book we have before the annuals, now they look Instagram or whatever.
Jean-François, you have this event Thai Paris.
Mm.
For how many years now? 3 years?
Since 2015.
What happened to Les Compagnons?
Les rencontres de Lure, you mean, rencontres internationales de Lure, where I invited you in 95, something like that.
You still have it?
Yeah, it still exists on next week or in 2 weeks. Cyrus I. Smith will speak in Paris in their organization. Yeah, they're still alive, and they have a bunch of new people making this organization, non-profit organization, working.
When was the first meeting?
Sorry?
1947? When was it established by Maximilian Vox?
It was during the Second World War.
Yeah.
It's little controversial because during the Second World War, Maximilian Vox, I don't know exactly where is the reality of that, but at the end of the 30s, Maximilian Vox was quite, seems to be quite extreme right, of certain vision of that was interesting for him, but I don't know at which level, or nobody knows the reality of that. The context is very complex. Even Mitterrand was also like that, but after he was on the left, the French president, so you never know exactly. But he even worked for the people who were with the German to do the identity of SNCF, and to have several typefaces for that. But very quickly, probably the first or the second year, he decided to go away from such thing and say, okay, France have to be without the German, not the German, the Nazi, and he began to be against war. So with some people like Jean Giono, they begin to meet in certain place in Alpes of the Haute-Provence to be against war. It's where more or less it started, more or less. And after the war, it became probably mid-50s, something like, I think the first meeting was in 52. Yes, 52. And more they begin to meet all together. And the biggest difference with ATP was, for Maximilian Vox, is for him, business doesn't have to mix with organization like that. And for him, ATP will be a big failure because it's business thing and they try to put regulation. And he was right, because ATP is not anymore a business organization. It's exactly like Rencontre de Lure or BC, it was about culture. It's not about business. People meet there to discuss business because they are together, but it's about culture. Yeah. He was right. Yeah.
Any more questions?